Christian Geek Central is doing Extra Life again this year to raise funds for children in urgent need of medical care. You can help us out and get some fun rewards at the same time. Stick around after the video for more details. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. With me today is Dallas Mora from Geek Devotions. Thank you for taking time out for me. I've really been looking forward to this conversation, Dallas.
I'm excited about it too, man. Thanks for having me on here.
For those of you who don't know, Geek Devotions is a website, and would you say that it's like primarily what you're producing and doing is the YouTube content, or how would you describe Geek Devotions?
We primarily, it's our YouTube channel. It's a show from a couple devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know they're loved. And so the website actually sprouted out of a necessity for our podcast, actually. I didn't want to put show notes in there, and I was like, let's just build everything up here. So we put out a lot of we put out articles now and stuff like that, but primarily it's the YouTube channel where we put out a devotional every Friday.
Okay, cool. Excuse me. I just came in from exercising, so if I'm all sweaty and glistening and stuff, and
I was wondering why you look so swole over there.
Yeah. Anyway, I reached out to you a couple weeks ago, interested in having a conversation and just kind of having some kind of interaction with you and pick your brain about, a topic of interest. And what you picked for the topic was, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh man, yes, I totally want to talk about this. And that is balancing our love for geek culture with our walk with God and figuring out how in the world do we navigate that. I feel like, I don't know what you've noticed in your work with Geek Devotions, but I feel like the knee-jerk topic that most geeks, who maybe first discover geek content for Christians online, one of the first things I want to talk about is what's okay to engage in and what's not okay, and they're concerned about violent content or sexual content or whatever and stuff, and those are all things that we need to talk about and discern our way through. But I wonder if the issue that is actually much more has a much more widespread impact on our walk with God is, and more commonly, is how much time we spend with doing geek stuff and what the balance in life is. A lot of people talk about your work to home life ratio, but what about our entertainment to walk with God ratio? How do those things intersect? Are they ever at odds and stuff? And so what are some of the first things that come to, well, first, let me ask, what's your go-to geek out activity when you have free time for it?
My go-to free time activity, really, just because my wife and I are out, we're really busy all the time. So it's we like to sit down and watch movies and partake in that. We love watching movies, love watching stuff with good stories and stuff. So it's a lot of based around what we can do together. So maybe sometimes we'll play co-op, but she's never really good at playing video games sometimes. so we watch movies or we binge Netflix when we can. I just left watching Luke Cage to do this with you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, for me, it's these days. It didn't used to be this way, but these days it's pretty much video games. I'll sometimes read some fiction, but that's usually to get myself sleepy in bed at the end of the night. But yeah, definitely video games is probably my go-to. How do you how do you see that balance? How do you approach figuring out how much is too much, or was some of that you had in mind about discerning what kinds of content? Tell me a little bit, maybe flesh out what you had in mind when you brought that topic to the discussion.
It's kind of like all encompassing. Part of it is the whole how much time do we devote something, and how much, and what is it that we consume and how we consume it.
Yeah.
I was just in a conversation the other day with our mutual friends over at Retro Rewind podcast, and part of their one of their if you're a Patreon supporter, you get what they call their spiritual implication conversation about the movies they did, and they had this really great conversation about what is worship and what is not worship, and when we're putting things above it. And really, in my mindset, it is when we're putting all of our time into something to the point that our devotion to God, it really does take a back seat. It's become idol worship. And so there's something that we as Christians we have to maintain. And it's not just our of course we're talking in context of geekery. You know, how much do I binge watch of the next Netflix show? How much do I do this? Or, you know, how many hours I sink into playing a video game that's I just keep dying and dying in. You know, and we get in these things, and I think, you know, if I have a day where I just binge playing a video game, like recently I was playing Mr. Shifty on Steam, and
Whoa, hold on.
there's
What's Mr. Shifty?
Okay, Mr. Shifty's game came out a couple years ago. It's a great top-down video game. The best way to describe it is this: if you ever watched X-Men 2, and there's a scene with Nightcrawler in the White House, that is the entire game. You teleport, and you're jumping from place to place, beating up bad guys, and then some rooms are like a puzzle to it where you have to figure out how to get around certain obstacles and everything. I love it. Like, I binged it, and there's this one level where there's a kill counter, how many times you die, and I literally died 99 times in it, and I'm pretty sure it just ran out of counting points. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I spent an hour trying to beat it. It was bad. So, but I think there was that balance of, like, you know, man, if I'm sinking all my time in this and then I'm neglecting the responsibilities that I have in life, then I believe that taking care of our responsibilities is a part of our worship to God, because he's given us responsibilities to handle. So my responsibility to care for my house, my responsibility to care for my wife, not just the typical Christian answer of like, well, my worship is reading my Bible and singing songs. Yes, that is acts of worship. But when we look at the scriptures, it talks about presenting our bodies as being a reasonable act of worship. It's encompassing our lives. So if I'm neglecting my responsibilities in life, then my geekery or my hobby, my fandoms, they have become a god to me. And I think that's when we have to really take stock of things.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation to have, because I feel like sometimes what we want to do in ministry with geeks is first of all assure them that, listen, these things are not in and of themselves sinful. We can find things even in movies and various forms of entertainment that point to God, that glorify him in some way. But I think that it's also important that along the way we be sure to clarify, let's not confuse, just because we can find God if we seek little spotlights on him in entertainment, let's not start thinking that we can like use entertainment as a replacement in any way for dedicated time with God, as opposed to, I think, being intentional. Like, in addition to dedicated time with God, in addition to prioritizing the other things in our lives that are more important than entertainment, that it's good to be an intentional supplement. How do you... What's interesting to me is, and it's frustrating, is sometimes there's like topics that I wish the Bible said more about,
Right.
And the Bible doesn't like come out and say very much about entertainment. I mean, we can look at Ecclesiastes, and there's some affirmation of, enjoyment of possessions in there.
Right.
But there's still an interpretive lens. We want to be careful as we're looking at Ecclesiastes or any book of the Bible. And so, what are maybe some principles? Because I think that's really what we end up having to look at is, okay, God is definitely not talking about the video game, Fortnite by name, So we have to dive. He's not even talking about video games. I don't think the word game, depending on your translation, ever appears in the Bible, or maybe not even the word fiction, or like, oh gosh, does entertainment even appear? So what are some, without like, pausing to, look up and figure out, a chapter and verse scripture, I won't burden us with that right now. What are maybe some principles that you bring to mind as you're figuring out how much and what kinds of content to give yourself to in proportion and ratio to the other things in life.
Right. So, like, one of my go-to conversations that I have with people when this kind of thing comes up is I take them to Corinthians when Paul's talking about, the meat sacrificed to idols, and people are freaking out about it, like, well, you can't eat that because it was used for this and it's evil. And Paul's like, no, it's a thing. It's food. Eat if you want. Don't eat if you don't want to. It's okay. Chill out. Cook it up. That's all. Well, sacrifice the idol, so it's pre-cooked. Great, eat it. So, but and so Paul's having this conversation with people, and he's saying, look, now if it's for you, if this has become a burden for you, for in your spiritual walk with God, don't do it.
Yeah.
You need to not do these things, but understand that, it's not an important aspect of life, whether you do this or not. And so that's kind of one of my first things I go to with people is like, it's a thing, it's a medium. Now, where we go with it, that's where you have issues. There's the scripture about eat, drink, and be merry. That's awesome, and it says that, but it also says other things about, hey, don't drink to excess. That's bad.
Yeah.
And so there's that balance of there. And so I feel like if we're looking at principles, everything I see in the scriptures, it's all about balance. People take these extremes, and sometimes they have to take an extreme for their walk with God. It's like, I'm not going to eat this meat at all because it is evil. And some people, they take the extreme where they just indulge with it, and it's become sin for them. And I think that we as Christians, we have to balance these things out. Where are you with your walk, God? Scripture does talk about saying, to my brain just stopped functioning for a second, to work out your own salvation in fear and trembling of the Lord. And I feel like there's a lot within that sentence of if we're truly fearing and trembling the Lord. And that's not like, I'm scared, but it's like, like this is my God and I'm in awe of him. What is honoring for him? What does he call for me? If we're doing that, then we're walking these things out going, okay, what is it that is appropriate for him? What is it gives him glory? What doesn't give him glory? In context of who I am as an individual also. We have our black and whites. We have our black and white sin and not sin. But then we do have, like you said, it doesn't say entertainment in the Bible. It doesn't say Fortnite in the Bible.
Yeah.
But just say honor God with who we are and what we do. And so that's one of those things I talk with people about is, where is that with you? For me personally as an individual, like a great example, the drinking thing. I don't drink as a person, as an individual. I am a licensed minister with the Assemblies of God. So under our contract, I can't drink. At the same time, I know that I have family history of alcoholism, and I've watched family members beat other family members because they're in a drunken stupor. And so for me, I was like, I'm not going to open that door.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let. So I've been just shut it down. Not going to happen. Not coming into my life. There's some people that they do it and it's cool, and I'm like, all right, that's on you. Work it out with the Lord. But for me and my house, we're not going to do it because I can't allow that door in my life. I am an addictive personality. I'm one of those things. I joke with people. If I have a drink in my hand, I'm going to drink it. Like I'll tear through bottles of water because it's in my hand. So I can't afford to have anything else in my life because it's going to be gone. So it's just one of those things. On the entertainment side of things, there's some stuff that I watch that my wife can't watch because she gets nightmares from it. And she'll just and so I'm like, all right, don't watch it. It's cool. My free time, I got it. This is my meat on the altar. I'm not going to be scared of certain things. For her, she's like, I can't touch it. Right. I'm glad you recognize your boundaries. Don't do that. There are some stuff like,
oh, I just gonna piggyback on that, talking about just your different sensitivities and stuff like that. Like for me, I really unless it's like they're like I'm talking about nudity here. Unless you can tell there's a bound chicka bound bound music that's starting up, and and then I love it when they make it so that you can skip there's like a chapter break right after whatever they're doing. That's really helpful. And then also Amazon has a nice jump 10 seconds ahead, so I just go, oh, they're doing this, so I'm gonna go 10 and done,
Right.
And my wife knows, when we're watching something together, that stuff doesn't affect her, and so she's a handy partner in that. And just let me know if there's any plot specific stuff going on. I'll just rock the peripheral vision right now, and
we'll get a drink from the kitchen.
At the same time, I can totally do crazy, like gory horror
Yeah.
movies and stuff like that, and my wife Holly would be like, But on the other hand, I don't think I can ever watch The Notebook ever again. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, I
And I'm not saying
have.
that because it's like ew romance. It's like because of the Alzheimer's thing.
Yeah, yeah,
That's real. That
yeah.
happens to people. That story
Hmm.
is so many people's reality. And so
Hmm.
like I can take some guy's head exploding with weird tentacles and stuff like that, and I'll be like,
Right.
oh, that's crazy, But like you have me watch The Notebook, and I finish that movie. The credits are rolling, and I'm weeping on the couch in the fetal position, and my wife is comforting me, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want
Right.
this to ever happen, And then I'm kind of haunted for days, And so it's like
Yeah.
so I've learned that's the kind of content, that I
Right.
need to stay away from. Do you have like when it comes to, I want to talk about the time investment a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, what are your kind of like? Do you have any uh, benchmarks or filters or indicators that, like, I can tell I've been giving too much time or assigning maybe too much importance, maybe not necessarily too much time, but like I can tell I want this too much? Or how can you personally? What are your personal red flags that tell you, oh, I've stepped over a line here? Because that
Hmm.
certainly I can find, when I like start feeling entitled to,
Hmm.
like, I need my alone time, I need my me time, or whatever the heck, and I start,
Right.
like, my boys come in, and I'm just like, and I start having like this negative attitude toward them,
Hmm.
or I start thinking in my mind something negative about my wife when she asks me something, because I feel I should be entitled to have time for such and such, or whatever. And so those are
Hmm.
like some red flags that, if I am, able to catch them, that they're like indicators to me that's like, oh, you know what? Something went off the rails somewhere, and I need to look at
Hmm.
those. Do you have any kind of like red flags that you know of?
Yeah, some of it's that, if I'm like investing in something like that, or I'm trying to watch something and Celeste is trying to have a conversation with me or bring something important, and if I realize I'm getting annoyed that she's talking to me right now, I go, okay, I've got to put a block on something. I've got to shut something down because my bride is more important to me. But some of it is understanding my priorities also. If it's like I got a project I got to work on, and or I'm doing this, but I'm allowing, like, man, forget this, I'm gonna go do this for a while, and I'm dropping my priorities. That's when I go, okay, something's become a problem for me somewhere down the road. I do some videos for people on the side here and there, and I'm like, all right, I'll be done this time, and it's like the night before, I'm like, I should have done this earlier. I realize I put things above this I shouldn't have done. And so that's kind of one of my things is if I'm losing my priorities, or if like in unison with your family, where I'm just like, I'm annoyed with my bride for talking to me while I'm doing something, or whenever like I have family members like, hey, we need to do this. I'm like, well, but I want to do this instead. That's what things that kind of get to me.
Um, if we were to wax philosophical for a moment, um, what comes to mind when you think about the potential purpose for entertainment? What do you suppose God might have in mind as the purpose, that the good that can come from it, that when we have it in right proportion and right priority in our lives,
Hmm.
do you think it serves a purpose? And if so, what purpose would you think it could potentially serve, or at least one of some potential purposes?
Right. I think in entertainment, I think it can spur creativity in an individual, and it can spur us to think things outside the box. Honestly, if we look at entertainment, it's really is the expression of somebody else's creativity, and when we see that, we ourselves are inspired and go, man, what if this had happened? What if that happened? I think for God to allow us to think that way, um, with entertainment, that's a sign that He wants us to, because creativity creates creativity, if I can say that, and God's a creative being. And you got those people who are like, well, you shouldn't have that because it's escapism. I don't think escapism is wrong. I think extreme escapism is wrong. But we have to decompress. We have to calm down and think about things, and relax, and get away from the stresses of the world sometimes. And I feel like God's created entertainment to help with that. There is oh man, he's some sort of guru with business and everything, and His whole thing is, always work the hustle. You always need to be working, always need to be producing stuff, and that's true. But I heard somebody else talk about the other day where, yeah, work the hustle, work hard. This. You run a whole thing on your own with Christian Geek Central, but if you don't rest, the creativity level drops like exponentially. And no matter what we do, whether like you and I, where we run ministries and we do stuff where we're creating stuff all the time, or maybe you're an employee at a factory, or maybe you're a CEO of a company, if we don't decompress, our brain will not function and our productivity will drop, and we won't be able to do what we need to do in the long run. And so I feel like God created entertainment for us to decompress, so we can recharge our mental battery and do work and do it well. I mean, over and over again, we see in the scriptures God calling people to do things and do it to the best of their ability. To the point where we're saying that whatever we do it as unto Him, as an act of worship unto Him. And so if we can't think straight, if we can't function because we haven't decompressed in, a month and a half, we can't give it to Him properly. And therefore we're bringing Him a bad act of worship.
Yeah. Yeah, I like your use of talking about both escapism and decompressing. I think that unhealthy escapism is when we've got something in our life that's stressing us, that's troubling us, and our response is, I want to go to entertainment to not think about that and not deal with that. I think that first what we ought to do is have a conversation with Jesus about this, go to the Word, figure out, okay, what can be corrected about my perspective on this? How can I see this in a way that better reflects reality as God describes reality in Scripture? And then praying through that and carving the time out to seek truth and to have this conversation with God that we need to have, give space for Him to speak. But there have been times where I've done that and I've been like, okay, I know, and I've spent a good amount of time, like I know what my perspective should be. I've prayed on this. I've had, a good moment and correction here in my thinking. There is a sense of okay, the tension is lowered, but it's still there, and I still have these same thoughts spinning in my head. I think at that point, it's totally legitimate to be like, you know what? I just need something else in my head right now so that noise can get, drowned out,
Sure.
And I think that's where, that's what I would call decompression. I need to get this out.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated you kind of talking about both of those things. This has been really cool. I want to have more conversations like this in the future, but I'll wrap this up for now. Thank you so much, Dallas, and for having this conversation with me and for all you're doing over at Geek Devotions.
Absolutely, man. It's been fun. Appreciate you.
Thanks for watching that, guys, and thank you again to Dallas Mora for that awesome conversation. We've actually kind of partnered, and we're timing this so that a devotion that I put together on a very similar topic to the one Dallas and I talked about is going up over at the Geek Devotions YouTube channel. So be sure to go over there and check that out, and all the other great content that those guys are putting together. They're doing some great stuff. So I hope you'll check out Geek Devotions. Thanks again for watching, guys. Bye-bye. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. For my 5th consecutive year, I'm participating in Extra Life, a charity event that raises funds to provide medical care for children in urgent need. I'm also leading the Christian Geek Central Extra Life team, which you're still welcome to join by following the link in the description below. Once again this year, I'm drawing attention to our team's fundraising by performing a 24-hour marathon of video gaming that I will live stream to youtube.com/Christian Geek Central and christiangeekcentral.com beginning 6 a.m. Pacific Time on Saturday, November 3rd. My goal is to raise $200 for my children's hospital. Our total team goal is to raise $700. You can donate on my page or any team members' pages by following the links below. You'll also find some incentives and rewards for donating to some of our team members. On my page, for example, for $5 or more, you can choose a topic to add to my +2 page of many topics that I'll be blabbing my opinions on during my live stream. For $10 or more, you get that previous reward and a download code for a free copy of the Spirit Blade Legacy Edition audio drama. For $20 or more, you get the previous rewards, and you can choose a game for me to play during my November 3rd live stream. You can pick a favorite of yours that's in my library, or torture me with something terrible or rage-inducingly difficult. For $30 or more, you get the previous rewards, and you can choose a song for me to sing during my November 3rd live stream. Pick an old favorite of yours, or just make me humiliate and torture myself with something that nobody wants to hear. For $50 or more, you get all those previous rewards, and you get a download code for every MP3 product at spiritblade.com. That's a $90 value. Now, on top of all that, I've set fundraising milestones that will unlock crazy events as I reach them in my personal fundraising. When I reach $200, I will have a free download day for everyone who visits spiritblade.com on November 7th this year. And every $50 beyond $200 unlocks more free audio dramas for that free download day. Along with free audio dramas, reaching milestones in my personal fundraising will unlock weird stunts that I will pull during my November 3rd live stream, like turning into a monster, reenacting a moment from a favorite horror movie, or playing intensely embarrassing home videos from my past. Now, there are some stipulations and time limits on those rewards and milestones, so quickly follow the link below to my fundraising page for all of the details. I hope you'll be a part of helping me and the Christian Geek Central team do some good for some kids who really need it. And then please join me at youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral for my 24-hour video gaming marathon starting at 6 a.m. Pacific on Saturday, November 3rd. Hope to see you then.